All right, welcome to Coffee and Cargo. We're glad you guys were all able to make it. I see quite a few people are still slowly joining, so we'll start with some introductions, kind of go over some topics and get started here today. So we're all really excited. We have some guest speakers, which we'll do some introductions for. But first, my name is Rachel. I work with the marketing team here at Interlog. We have Emily Smith, who works with marketing as our project manager, Ben Schwingel, who is our International Operations Director, and Justin Engelmeyer, who is our Vice President here at Interlog. So the four of us are really excited to introduce Eori Limited, who is going to come share some good topics, insight on the UK trade lane. So we have Robert Hardy here, who is the founder of Eori Limited. Welcome, Robert. And then we have Elaine Cosgrave, who also will be joining us in these conversations. So we're really excited for you guys to come on. We appreciate your time here today, but I'll hand it off to Ben to kind of start the conversation.
Hi, everyone. And allow me to let Rob and Elaine elaborate more on what Eori is, but they are a specialist in customs clearance from the United Kingdom that was founded after Brexit began and made a mandatory establishment of new clearance processes for the new situation in the UK. And since then, there's been changes in Northern Ireland will cover, and they've expanded to assist in that region also. Rob Hardy, as a founder, would you like to introduce yourself and then Elaine?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. As Elaine will tell you, though, I talk too much, so we won't get beyond this introduction. So at the end of the webinar. But we were sitting off. I mean, I come from that background of customs clearance and what have you, and previously sort of senior roles within P&O ferries and Eurotunnel and the movement of trucks generally. But and when Brexit was coming along, we heard a lot of bad advice and bad information being given to traders from people who really should have known better. And we got a bit sick of shouting at the television, really, and thought we'd better do something about this. So we started giving advice to traders about how to prepare for Brexit, because it was a huge change. And then we realized there was a number of times when we thought, you're going to need the help of a customs broker or a customs intermediary here, because it's a complex subject and we've been at it for 40 years and I can't possibly explain it to you in 40 days. And we were frustrated by the lack of modern approach from the existing intermediary market. So slightly reluctantly, we created our own customs brokerage about 2 years ago, which is now probably the largest customs brokerage in the UK. Kind of didn't mean to do that, but we just kept finding that we were popular because we had a modern approach. So we now handle clearances in UK, in Northern Ireland for the government, and also in the Republic of Ireland. As I say, I talk too much, so I'm going to hand you to my learned colleague Elaine, who helped us through all of this mess at the beginning.
Yeah.
So Elaine.
Hi everybody, my name's Elaine Cosgrave. As Rob said, I joined as head of EU Customs Partnerships. Obviously we needed partners in the EU, and at the time when I needed a partner in the USA, which is Ben, one of our friends Lucas Langowski from Poland recommended Ben. So hence now we are working with Ben Schwengel as well. So my brief is to look after our European partnerships and our overseas partnerships.
Cool. Can I add there, Ben? Sorry, because you know I talk too much, so you're going to have to do this a lot. Is that we spent a long time finding partners.
Yeah.
Because we wanted people who were as modern and forward thinking as we were, or as we are. Because we've taken a sort of project and really tried to make it as the customs isn't a stop-start process and everything. And we've returned down more people than we've worked with. So I'm not saying that you have the stamp of approval from Eori, but rest assured that we spent a lot of time looking for agents everywhere we looked. And if we weren't comfortable with their modern approach and how they were trying to change the way the freight is moved and customs is done, we wouldn't be working with them. We would hold them back. So hence the reason why we're here, really, because you guys were instantly impressive.
We appreciate that, Rob. And that's the essence of Elaine's job. My job is finding partners that think like-minded, that desire for a modern approach. One of our mantras is more cargo, fewer emails. This industry has enough problems that we don't need to also be burned out by the tediousness of excessive data entry when that should have been automated years ago, and we have. So we connected really well on a lot of like-minded issues for modern speaking. That's why we're here talking today, because I feel like Interlog and Eori and all the audience here like to stay informed, but there's only so much that we can relay to them, and just better to come directly from you.
Thank you.
Sure. You know, in the United States, we've had our own labor strike issues this last summer with the rail, and it's kind of lingering, but it's probably over for good. And we know that you recently had some in Felixstowe, I believe, and a few other ports. Elaine, do you want to chime in and let us know the status there?
Yeah, we've had some labour strikes in Felixstowe. There was some rumblings in Southampton and also in Liverpool, which would probably affect yourselves coming in from the East Coast into Liverpool. And I know some of CMA, they come round to Southampton. But at the moment, everything's fine. I think everybody's calmed down, shall we say. And at the moment, containers are coming in and being divanned and basically being delivered within about 7 to 8 days, which is really good. So at the moment, things seem to be going well.
And Elaine, what was it, if it's 7 to 8 days now, if you don't mind me asking, what were you seeing when there were issues? They
were looking at 14 to 21 days.
Okay.
And it was crazy because the shipping lines were still charging you for rent and demurrage.
Yeah.
So it was ka-ching, ka-ching as far as they were concerned. This is great, you know. Yeah, we like a bit of this. But basically now it's calmed down. I think if a container comes in on a weekend, you're more or less going to get that by the end of the week.
Okay.
And we also had major issues with driver shortage as well. We hadn't got enough container drivers to actually, you know, drive the containers from the dock to the end, to the, you know, the manufacturing place at the end, or wherever they were going, the delivery. But that's calmed down now. But we have found that inland haulage charges in the States in the UK has more or less by doubled. So where it was like £500, say, from Southampton, Felixstowe up to Manchester, Liverpool, you're looking around about £750 now. So, like, I presume that's the same in the States, though, hasn't it? Your inland haulage must have increased.
It did.
Oh, yeah.
Fuel prices increased, but it wasn't proportional to the amount of cost that we see with the drivers. And it has a trucker shortage, and we have severe chassis shortage. Just been a problem. You too?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think we have so much severe chassis shortage as yourself.
Can't say that.
I know, I've said that. What do you think? I don't think we have that problem so much. We had a problem at one time, particularly getting containers moved, especially on the export side, because obviously the containers are being held up off port and everywhere globally. So the containers weren't coming back into the UK. So to get an export container was a problem a couple of months ago. But I do once again think it's all calming down slightly.
We see the same in the United States, kind of watching the trends that are normal we haven't had for the last 2 years. But there is vessel space, there's containers available. There's still the normal trucker and rail line issues. We're entering into the winter here in the United States. You can see it, I'm covered in snow behind me. So we're just the normal wintertime issues to work through. But in the UK, are you looking any major concerns we should be aware of for weather, port congestion?
I don't think so, Ben. I don't think we suffer the extremes that you have. You know, you have extremes, don't you? Up by Chicago way into Canada with the St. Lawrence Seaway and all that. We don't tend to have that, do we, Rob? Really, so much. We just tend to have, you know, just the normal issues. If we have a couple of snowy days, it may be maybe difficult, but on the whole, there's nothing that I can see that could be upsetting for any freight coming in from the States.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we're not good on snow. It takes about a foot of snow when we come to a grinding halt. But
it's not even a foot, Rob. It's an inch.
I know. we really are rubbish at any. I mean, considering we're a country that is exposed to, we can have all 4 seasons in one day quite often.
Yeah.
And we're still a bit rubbish at it. It just doesn't really caught on. Trains stop because there's leaves on the track. A leaf from a tree on the track, and we can't run the train.
Yeah, it's not the right sort of leaf on the train, is it?
It makes you proud globally that we can be this kind of time. Yeah, look, we have some issues, but nothing that would really sort of snarl it up to any great degree.
No.
It's not that bad. Not that bad at all.
Well,
But I think the major problem was what with COVID and Suez and everything was just everything was out of sync. And then when it all came back into sync, everyone kicked off on the Labour side. I just think, I mean, it's sort of the same even at airports, not freight, just actual people. You know, work was so different during the sort of lockdown periods that I don't know, it gave people more time to think, I think. And then when you went back to situation as normal, people realised they didn't quite like normal, and there were some problems then. You know, and we're still, it's still odd. The world is still an odd place at the moment. It's not back to normal yet. It's really hard to compare like for like without going back about 4 years.
Yeah.
So tricky.
and I think we've permanently switched our attitude on a lot of things, as you just mentioned. We had time to reflect the last couple of years. What do you think that means in the UK for consumers as we end this year? Or this is the holiday season, and what's the outlook for next year?
High inflation, not kind of Zimbabwe-esque, but it's high inflation. You know, it's people's fuel bills are increasing. Fuel is increasing. There's fuel is leveled rather, so that's not too bad. Although they're just about to put road tax on electric vehicles, so all those people that had electric vehicles be included now suddenly going to have to pay road tax. But it was always going to be the case. You're using the road. You know, it was only an incentive. But inflation's a struggle. You know, there's a lot of people whose household bills have gone up by the equivalent of about $300 to $500 a month. You know, that's dead money. That's money that was previously disposable income. You've got nothing more to show for it, but it's no longer disposable income. So it focuses the mind a bit.
I think they said our inflation's going to go by 14%, Rob, which is the highest it's been in the last 40 years.
Wow. The last time it was there was Thatcher. I remember my mortgage rate in Thatcher days was 13%. And that was all right. That was pretty good. So it's a tough time. It's what are the reasons? There's a bit of Ukraine in there, there's a bit of COVID. I mean, history will show you that after a pandemic, the recovery is the performance of a country or an economy is greater than it was prior to the pandemic, because you super recover. I'm not seeing that yet. There's some work to do on that front, but it still feels. I mean, Ukraine gets the blame for a lot of stuff because, not Ukraine, Russia gets the blame for a lot of stuff. You never quite know how much of that's true. It's just energy rates are going up. But part of our business is to run chill and frozen storage for food distribution into retail. And the energy consumption on that is enormous, you know, but luckily so are the sheds. So we're putting lots of solar on it as well. And just everybody's looking at alternative energy sources because it's becoming a really, really big expense.
Okay.
But I got a letter at home the other day saying good news is your energy bill next year at my house, okay, just my house with a family of 4 will be, I'll turn this into dollars. My gas and electric next year will cost $12,000. So $1,000 a month for gas and electric for utilities. It's a lot of money.
Oh, we have the same concerns here. That's something that we definitely need, but we can't control the cost of the energy for heating homes and transportation. Although we do know how to travel a lot less than we used to.
Yes, good point. Yes, good point. You're still using power though. That's the only problem. That's to keep using bloody electricity.
I think maybe more in the UK though, you view your energy use and solar panels as a national security. You don't have to rely on belligerent states like Russia. And I'm thinking.
Well, we're not self-sufficient, unfortunately. Somebody once said that the energy that's harvested from the sun through solar is less than 1% of the potential energy that could be harvested from the sun. You know, so it's just what's politically acceptable. We parked our nuclear power station plan. We parked the fracking idea because that didn't go very well. I know you have fracking in US, but everybody wants fracking, but nobody wants it in their garden. So it's kind of, we're struggling a bit. which incidentally reminds me of something, a bit of a customs anecdote, a short one, is, you know, when you're doing customs declarations, there's a commodity code or an HS code for every product, and you think during your career you'll be exposed to most of them. Well, I got exposed to one the other day that I never thought, well, it was about 6 months ago. I got exposed to an HS code for a product that I never thought I would be exposed to. It's all above board, it's all legal, but we actually, as part of our relationship with Northern Ireland and the customs entries that we do under the bonnet there, we actually do a monthly customs declaration for electricity, which, because it crosses a border.
Yeah.
And there is an HS code for electricity. I never thought I'd use it, but we now actually do. You take a meter reading. Customs ask for a documentation check because the value was so high for this customs declaration. But you take a meter reading at the beginning of the month and a meter reading at the end, and you do a customs declaration because it has crossed the border. And customs asked us for more information. Electricity. What can I tell you?
Something you'll see radio waves, yeah, and everything.
Yeah.
The radio.
I just never thought I would do an entry for that, so we've done one now. Tick.
I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, because I wanted to talk to you about Northern Ireland Protocol and what's been happening there and how Eori's been involved with the clearances, because they're in a very special status.
Yeah, I think so. Good or bad, I don't really know. That the Northern Ireland was always this major stumbling block, really, in the Brexit negotiations, because you wanted to keep all the borders free. You wanted to be in control of the borders and have a border, but let it flow as freely as you can. And the UK is fine because it's a nice island. Or sorry, GB is fine. Just for those that don't know, actually, the United Kingdom is Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. Great Britain is Scotland, Wales, and England. And Northern Ireland sits outside of that. So you often see I think even in the Olympics, it's GB and Northern Ireland, or in the Commonwealth, there's a GB team and an NI team, so, or in certainly one of those tournaments. So Northern Ireland sat there and it created a bit of a problem, because it's part of the UK, but it's also got a land border with 300 crossings with the EU, and nobody wanted a border on the island of Ireland for reasons of the troubles in the past, and it becomes a focal point. So nobody wanted the border. The UK was sitting there saying, well, we're not going to build a border, so that's us solved. And the EU was saying, but I can't have a back door into the single market. So I kind of need a border, but I'm not going to build one either. So you had this really odd situation where two sort of political bodies were sitting there saying, well, we're worried about the border, which neither of us are going to build. So neither of us are going to put a border there, but we're both worried about the border. Okay. So they conjured up something called the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is a sort of unique situation, which keeps the fact that there is no border on the island of Ireland, and also that the Northern Ireland remains part of the United Kingdom. It has some issues in that it does effectively, depending on how you look at it, could be seen to create a border in the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But it's a customs border, not a physical border. It's a process administration border. However, what it does do is it allows Northern Ireland a unique, absolutely unique situation where it is simultaneously in two customs territories, which I just don't know anywhere else in the world where this happens, where you can bring product in from US, for example, into Northern Ireland, customs clear it in Northern Ireland and pay any duty on those goods if there is duty to be paid. And those goods can now move freely within the UK and the EU without any more customs documentation or any further duty payment. I mean, that is an astonishing advantage. It's just this oasis in the middle of all the customs processes that we all know and understand, that actually has a territory which can choose to be in whichever customs territory it wants to be, depending on the flow of the goods, which is incredible. I mean, the geography says it's awkward.
It's here to stay for the long term, and this is going to greatly benefit Northern
Yeah,
Ireland.
well, our role in that is the government created something called the Trader Support Service, where they actually provided free documentation for an initial period for traders, so that they weren't burdened with this. And also, what you've got to remember is a lot of traders in Northern Ireland were not very familiar with customs paperwork because most of the product would sort of land in England and end up in Northern Ireland. So that all the customs stuff was done in England. So suddenly you had a very complicated customs process being delivered to a fairly immature customs market. And it was, the burden would have been quite consuming. So the government came up with an idea of the Trader Support Service, where they funded it for, as I say, a limited period, where there is a free to use customs product, which is driven by a consortium of which we're part of it. So it's Fujitsu is the prime contact in the consortium, and Fujitsu, as we know, is just a huge IT company. I mean, I think we did a credit check on them at one point. You know, you do a credit check and it says that they're okay for this credit. Well, theirs was 400 million. I've never seen a credit check that said 400 million. So we let them through. You know, but we became the customs intermediary underneath the scene. So we do. I would say now about 90 to 95% of the declarations that are done in Northern Ireland are done in our name. We don't necessarily do them because we created a lot of tech in the background that allows the trader to do it himself. But if the trader is not sufficiently sophisticated to do that, we do it for him. But it will always remain. The Trader Support Service will always remain. The only question that remains after that is who pays for it. Now, at the moment, the government pay for it, and at some point it might be prudent that the trader pays for it. But politically, that's quite a hard one to push into the Northern Ireland economy and saying you've got to pay for something you don't want. Look, the traders, businesses generally like the Northern Ireland Protocol because of this dual nationality. But if you're not an international shipper of any description, it's a border in the Irish Sea, and I don't like it, and I'm not having it. So we've got to try and make sure that those that can't get any benefit from the advantages of the protocol are not disadvantaged by the protocol. And one of the ways of doing that is just by making sure that the essentials like food and medicine move smoothly. And that's part of the negotiation, which is ongoing, which President Biden has become part of as well. As is always the way, because there's a very close connection. So yeah, it's a tricky one. You know, the EU view and the UK view is very similar, but they're actually looking at it from different ends. So
that's just fascinating.
They have the same view, but you've got to clash them together. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating that you stood it up so quickly. The government outsourced it to a company that could modernize it and make it work effectively in a short amount of time. And we look forward to seeing how that progresses for your company, the country, and Northern Ireland's status.
Ben, that's a really good point. We stood it up ridiculously quickly. I mean, it was September 2020, and it went live in December 2020 for a 2021 start, because you had to register. Lord Agnew, who was the minister, if you like, in charge of that process, the government minister, Lord Agnew from the House of Lords, cites the launching of the Trader Support Service, and he's retired now, or he's retiring off. He cites the launch of the Trader Support Service as his single greatest achievement whilst in office, and brilliant.
Well, I know we'd be remiss if we didn't continue talking politics. You mentioned Joe Biden, and the G20 summit is occurring currently right now in Indonesia with representatives from both our nations. There's a couple of members really absent. That'd be Ukrainian and Russian leadership, which there was hope that they would both be there to discuss possible reconciliation or give some kind of indication if there'd be relief in that region of the world. Relies heavily on the wheat exports. I know Elaine's mentioned something about the leadership there in the UK and the impact of the wheat into Europe. Elaine, is there something more you could tell us about?
I was just saying, Rob, that when the Ukraine supplied a lot of their wheat into Europe, and hence the reasons a lot of the inflation has incurred because of food increases, because obviously the wheat's not coming in anymore. And I also, sorry, Bob, of course, I also mentioned that as a company, I was saying to Ben, we also did a lot of humanitarian aid, didn't we, out to Ukraine with the lorries? We did all the customs clearance for a lot of freight that went out.
We did actually. There was a lot of people doing that for honest and good reasons, but also for a bit of PR, a bit of public relations, and a bit of advertising. As we sent a truck to Ukraine, loads of people sending trucks to Ukraine. We sent hundreds of trucks to Ukraine. It cost us probably about £200,000 in terms of our commitment to that project. And we even took it a stage further, is that we then went to the retailers, because we work closely with the retailers from the food distribution side, and said we want to make a box which will sustain a family for a week. So it needed something like 40,000 calories in it, something like that. And with the help of, I think it was Asda and Morrison's, who were retailers over here, they came up with that box. There was quite a few biscuits in it, so there's quite a lot of calorie in the biscuit side of things. But nonetheless, it was a box that you could get calories from. It wasn't just anything fancy. I mean, and we had thousands and thousands of trucks doing that. All ending up in Ukraine with that product, and then it was going into a warehouse and then taken down to the border and as close as we could to Ukraine, really. Although that area now there was a missile attack in that part of Poland.
Yeah, we were saying that yesterday.
I don't quite know what that is yet, but that doesn't sound good. So yeah, we really got involved, and we're working closely with the government to see if we can actually open up a supply line of goods coming back from Ukraine, particularly the food products, because they were very big producers of corn, and it was very hard to get it out. Yeah. So that said, it's very hard to get a trucking company who wants to do it. Because most insurance policies will say you can't knowingly drive into a war zone and still be insured. So not many insurance policies that would cover that.
Yeah. I must say, Lucas helped, didn't he, as well, from Langowski Logistics. He helped out. He helped do the kits into Poland, didn't he, and took the stuff in as well. So it was a joint effort, wasn't it, really? Yeah,
it was, and it's been really good to see how people can pull together. I mean, it's been one of the most sort of rewarding parts of it, and we continue to do it. And we went under the radar then, and even when the press had gone, we still did it. We were still sending them. It's only recently I think we stopped, because we were doing a lot with the UK, a national newspaper in the UK, and if anything, they've lost a bit of interest in it, which is typical of a national newspaper. But there are still issues, There's still things to fix and still things to do. So, but Ukraine, we're still keen on doing this supply line into and out of Ukraine, which actually it's quite an interesting. It's got more than the humanitarian side to us, to be fair, is that we're keen on having secure corridors for freight, where it's really simplified, but it must still be secure without being prohibitive. And actually, if you can start to say, well, I'm going to load goods in Ukraine or bring food from Ukraine to the UK and track that and know where it is all the time and do the customs paperwork and if you can do that from there, where you really do need to control it so nobody's put a bomb in it or anything bad in it, then actually you've got the beginnings of a digital corridor to apply that anyway. So we're actually using it not only for good, but also for reasons of, well, we need to learn from this. What can we do from this experience that we can make things better going forward? So we're very involved. It's what we do for a living. And look, the guy who owns our food distribution side and is a large owner of our business is just that kind of guy. If he sees that problem, there was no talk of the money. It just kind of, we're all going, hang on a minute. So, but he'd already sort of piled money into this project. This is the same guy who's our chairman, if you like. He also, for charity, did a walk to the North Pole. So he has actually stuck his flag in the North Pole. 2 years later, South Pole. I mean, crackers, absolutely. And when he showed you the photographs of the 1952 Dakota that took you from Tierra del Fuego to the pole or to the ice cap, you think, I wouldn't even get on the plane, let alone the ice. But he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy, isn't he? Yeah.
He is a good guy.
We had 30 minutes now to touch on a lot of topics. I know a lot remain to be said. I think we're going to have you back on to discuss those. But if you could touch on real quickly, because the G20 is happening right now, and I know there's been recent changeover in your national politics. Can you just illuminate that a little bit for us? What's been happening recently? Who's in charge? What do you see coming out of the G20 as far as new trade agreements?
I'm not so sure about the G20, Rob, but I know I was explaining to Ben about Rishi Sunak, because Ben mentioned about the dollar rate and the GB pack, how it plummeted a couple of weeks ago. And I said it's sort of come back up slowly now because the market seemed to see Rishi Sunak, which is our new Prime Minister, as a safe pair of hands, don't they? And I think
they do. I mean, Paul Liz Truss didn't last very long.
No.
There was even a campaign in the newspaper to see whether she could outlive an iceberg lettuce, which we right, and she didn't.
She didn't, did she?
The lettuce survived, and the Prime Minister didn't, and she just got it wrong, really.
Yeah.
And there was a massive fallout from that. But in terms of trade, look, there's a huge part of Brexit isn't. I didn't actually vote in the Brexit referendum because I had views either way. But Brexit wasn't about making customs intermediaries wealthy. Brexit was about us having our freedom to negotiate and our sovereignty back, really, and freedom to negotiate deals that suited us and not just be on the back of a deal that suited the EU. Right? So we're running around frantically at the moment from a government point of view, doing trade deals with anyone that will listen to us. The US is next, but I don't think we can get the US packed properly until we fix the Northern Ireland piece. And that's just the politics of it. Once we get the US comfortable with the Northern Ireland, the solution to the Northern Ireland problem, then the Brexit, if I'm honest, is all about a trade deal with the US.
Yeah.
The UK and the US have got to get closer together, but the Northern Ireland is being used as a bit of a pawn in the game at the moment, not for the first time, I'd say, but it's get that right, and the floodgates will open. I think the UK wants to trade closely with the US. It feels a kindred spirit there, and our job as a customs intermediary is to make sure that trade is as simple as it possibly can be. The customs paperwork needs to not interfere with the movement of the goods. The customs paperwork is, or the requirement for customs paperwork is generated by the movement of the goods, but it's not dependent. The movement of the goods is not dependent on the customs paperwork. So we do a lot of our customs declarations after goods have been delivered. We have an irrevocable promise to do that declaration, and the goods are released. But we don't hold anything up at the port.
Right. Well, that'll be an exciting time when we have a trade agreement with the UK. We'll have to be watching the Northern Ireland protocol and the situation there closely. I know we'll have you back on if there is a trade agreement with the UK.
We'll be there. We'll be knocking on your door. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We'll be over with you.
Yeah, we'll come over and see you.
Wonderful. I know a lot of viewers do need to get on with their days, and it's later there for you. So you've got things to be on. Rachel, you want to maybe wrap up a little Q&A time, or however you proceed from this point?
Yep, that sounds good. Just with time, since we are hitting our 30-minute mark, we are going to skip the Q&A today. I do see quite a few questions in there, so we'll reach out to you guys individually to get those answered here today. I appreciate all the questions. Elaine, Robert, thank you for coming on. It was great to hear all your insight on all these great topics. So we'll get you guys on soon. Any last words from anybody?
Thank you for having us. Really appreciated it. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, and same here. And also just the resounding message from us is that you've got a friend in the UK now who's neutral and give you a view on something without any bias, So if anybody needs help with the UK, reach out to you guys, and then you feed to us, and we'll always give you a neutral view on things, warts and all. We don't move freight, so it will be a view across the whole market.
Rachel, would you go back?
Yep, we'll definitely make
viewers can see the contact information for Rob and Elaine. Can you go back one slide just so and make sure they have that? And thanks so much, Rob and Elaine. Always a pleasure talking with you. Informative, fun. It's a great time. Looking forward to talking with you again real soon.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Ben. We'll speak to you soon. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye,
Have a
bye,
good
bye.
day.